This is the Straight Talk Morning Show, and on the Straight Talk Network. My name is Andre Hill, your host, and we have our co-host, Chairman from Detroit, Michigan, Terrence Lake. How you doing this morning, Chairman?
Grand Rising, everyone. I'm doing great. It's just a beautiful day here in the Detroit area. Looking forward to a very informative discussion, and the weather's going to be even better tomorrow. So, hey, I said before, spring is in the air, summer is on the way.
So this is the time of the year that Detroiters get out and act a fool.
Well, that's everywhere.
I get reports like this from Nashville, where we resided for many years, and I always, my son's mother say, the weather's nice, they're out acting up. So anyway, okay. So also we have a co-host and engineer from the generation three generations behind us, Andre Hill Jr. How you going, man?
I'm good. I'm 3 generations behind you.
I consider 10 years generation. So with the chairman in the game is 3.5 generations.
3.5. I'm kicking at 80.
Oh my God, that's scary.
Tell me about it.
Y'all look good for something.
You holding up good for knocking on that door, man. Wow. All right, so today is going to be an interesting show. The chairman came on to say, "Oh, what's up with the biblical study today?" So, I ran across a skit with Good Times, and and the skit had the little boy Michael with Florence, the mother, and there was a discrepancy about her picture on the wall of Jesus, the Caucasian male Jesus. And Michael was saying, that ain't the right Jesus. And she said, well, this is the only Jesus I know, and that's the only Jesus I'm going to serve. And he said, well, no, Mom, it's even in the Bible that Jesus was black. And he quoted the scripture, and she changed her mind. And so every now and then, I've reached a point where I'm tired of trying to convince our good old church-going Christians, that there's a different narrative with truth. And, maybe they need to take in consideration that the church structure is just like kindergarten, and you're supposed to graduate from that and go out and seek other knowledge, like it says, knock and the door shall be open, seek and you will find, but a lot of these structures are stuck because they sign a covenant with the origins of the Abrahamic religions, which my son is going to expand on. And the covenant is only preach and teach certain books, and don't dwell into those other things. And then they use this excuse, well, God don't want you to know that. So I get a little spirituality or a little religion every now and then and say, maybe I need to reach back or reach up or whatever. And I think reach back and try to help my so-called church-going Christians out from time to time, whether they like it or not. So I do what the high creator tells me to do. I follow orders. So that's why we are dealing with some of these biblical statements. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the topics for today. I post every Friday on Facebook, right around 3:30 in the afternoon, and it goes this way. Good afternoon, family. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Straight Talk Network. We're also on YouTube. We're broadcasting simultaneously on YouTube at the link on my Facebook page. Or my Facebook page. Some of you would like to watch me live from watch us live from Facebook. So I always post those links in case Facebook decide they want to suppress our broadcast. And so it goes like this: the movie Get Out, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and The Science of the Soul. All deals with the theory of reincarnation that was intentionally suppressed by Abrahamic religions. Why? Also, who was Abraham and how did the Abrahamic religions come about, as described in lucifersrevenge.net, and why the city of Tampa is starting to experience direct hurricanes after 100 years, the last one was 1921, of avoiding them. Tune in and be enlightened. All right, so we're going to get this show on the road. So I've seen all three movies. Well, two of them are movies, and one is a documentary. The movie Get Out just came out recently within the last 5 years, and it was an interesting movie about a black man that got caught up in a Caucasian family, and there was a mysterious deal going on where this brother, this Caucasian girl would go out and recruit black men. And when they started dating her, she'll take them to the house and they mysteriously disappeared. Well, they disappeared from where they were hanging out. And for some strange reason, they would incarnate or possess these black bodies. And so it was a movie, even though it was fictional, but it was giving a hint to the fact that one soul can leave one body and possess another body. And, it was kind of a weird movie, but it has some significance. Chairman, did you see that movie, Get Out?
No, I haven't. I vaguely heard of it, but that's been some years, but
Yeah.
I've never seen the movie.
Yeah, it was a weird movie. My son, I think Andre, you've seen the movie, right?
Yes.
What's your take on that movie?
Like Chairman said, it was weird, but entertaining and intriguing. So, but basically, it's about what you said it was about. It's about this Caucasian girl that was recruiting, black men in particular. But her family, going further with it, her family was a part of, let's just say, demonic psychologists. And to some level, surgeons or doctors or something like that. And what they were doing with these black men in this, and the Caucasian family was a part of a conglomerate of other Caucasian families that were in the business or the industry of confiscating black bodies in particular. And they wanted these black bodies because these Caucasian people felt like these black bodies were superior. And they literally had a brother in there that they had confiscated, that the young Caucasian girl recruited. He was I think their groundskeeper, but he used to be a track star, I think, something like that. In other words, he had a Mandingo body. He was strong. He could run fast, so he wanted to run. And so one of those Caucasian people in that conglomerate said, "I want him. He got a nice body because I always wanted to be a track star, and I never had the body to be able to do it." So, in other words, they took this black man's body, repressed his own personality to the back of his own subconscious, to where he was in a passenger seat, and in the Caucasian person, they put his consciousness in his body, and he was in the driver's seat. So in other words, this black person can see everything that was going on. They can see their body being utilized and driven by a totally different soul or consciousness. That's what it was about.
And also in that house, there was a black woman that evidently her body had been confiscated as well, right? Yeah. So the point here is that in this structure, experiment of planet Earth, the I don't call them, I'm gonna call them demons. I'm gonna call them low frequency entities, but they are required to put it out there to you in plain sight, even though they are constantly deceiving you and constantly manipulating you to control you and enslave you. They are still required to put it out there in plain sight so you can have somewhat of a choice. And this is what this show is all about. Our primary objective is to give you an alternative, a choice to go into a higher frequency, to go into the light, to become positive, to be about finding the truth, and the makers of these movies, they've always tried, even though they're putting it out there, but they're gonna still try to snare you into the dark side to be continued to be further manipulated. But when we go back and deal with the fact that the original humans all over the planet in the beginning were melanated everywhere in the Americas, the North Americas, South Americas, Africa, Europe, they were all melanated people. And then when they reached this point, and this is repetitive because, we have to continue to repeat this in all the different languages so we get you to understand, how the truth works. We try to bring it to you in different languages because, is my theory. When I wrote about in my first book, The Second Coming, all 144 different personalities, all of you have different motivations, different languages, different drives, different fetishes, everything, so we vibrate on different frequencies, but it all falls into one balance. So we keep driving. Okay, so the invasion of the Body Snatchers. This was also a movie that dealt with an alien invasion, and the invasion was activated, or the incursion started, and these pods were placed all over the planet, and they will place them somewhere near you. And I'm trying to recall the movie, but it had a reflection on one soul transferring to another, from one body to another. And so if you went to sleep, wherever these pods were placed, they would replicate your body, and then you would basically lose your soul, will lose the body that you were in, and it will be replaced with an alien body that had one agenda. And that one agenda is being lived out today as we see it in these bodies that are no longer melanated. And the agenda seems to be on one accord of we need to eliminate the original bodies and replace them with a body that we can control, manipulate, and do the bidding of a lower frequency, like a slave. And when you act as a slave and you have no control over your own destiny, you have no choice, then that's a demonic low frequency system. And what we're advocating is that we want to have choice, we want to have equality, we want to have the freedom to make to control the narrative for our children, for our countries, and evolve to a higher frequency so that we can become part of the grand scheme of things in this galactic system. Is that making sense to you, Chairman?
Well, I never was one to get into the scary movies, even since I was a child. If we had one television, if my sister and brother would want to see a scary movie, I would put the covers over my head because I just, didn't want that to get in my spirit, I guess you could say.
That's exactly why, Chairman. Yeah. I'm the same. I didn't want to see him because I didn't want that negative energy creating fear in my subconscious mind. So that's a confirmation you were a starseed. All right. So also one of the other movies, and this was a documentary done by the History Channel and the University of Virginia. They did a research, and I brought this up on one of our shows many years ago. They did a documentary called Science of the Soul, where they actually went out and initiated 2,000 case studies of different children and families that had, a reoccurrence of previous elders in their family being reborn in the children, the grandchildren, or whatever case. In some cases, they weren't even the same family. The most prominent story in this documentary was a young boy who was in a previous life a pilot in World War II, and he crashed somewhere over near the Pacific Theater. And when he crashed in the water and he drowned while his plane was on fire, had been shot down. And so this child woke up and started, he was born. So, I skipped over a part. So he remembered his soul was floating over Hawaii, and he went down into this hotel and picked some parents. Now, this is the part that I found interesting. Now, this guy was Caucasian in that particular life as a pilot in World War II. But in this particular case, he had the option. He could have picked, any other body, but he picked a Caucasian family again. I don't know if he had the influence or if he had an option, but he said in this documentary that he saw his mother and father, and he picked them to be his mother and father. But then he kept recalling this incident where he was shot down and crashed, burned, and drowned. And he went as far as mentioning all of his former pilots, his buddies that he served with. He remembered the names. And it was an uncanny story. And I got emotional from it because at some point, the parents wanted him to release this, let it go, And so they took the young boy out to the site where his plane crashed. And they at that point, anybody watching this film would have shed a tear, because he actually was there at the scene where his previous body crashed in the plane. So if you go on, one thing about the low frequency or demonic system that's in place now, they're trying to erase any proof of the spiritual capabilities of human beings. And so it might be hard to find it, but it was a documentary sponsored by the History Channel and the research by the University of Virginia on this 2,000 case study. So try to look it up. If you were in a transition right now, trying to wake up out of the heroin sleep that you're in, it'll help give you certain confirmations. We were dumbed down and we were told to become just drones and stupid, through these Abrahamic religions, which my son is going to expand on and in just a few minutes. Hey man, can you load up that tape? I got a couple of tapes of a sister, and while he's loading that up, it's a melanated woman talking about, from a biblical perspective, how the Bible mentions reincarnation, and it does, but you have to really read it to understand what she was talking about. Go ahead and play it, man.
I am not surprised that some people would not accept that we can return as someone else through reincarnation after we die, which is everlasting life that God has for those who love him. What surprises me is that people quickly reject it, saying it's not in the Bible. Now let me see how many scriptures I can place here in this 1-minute video. God wants his gospel to be preached. He wants his people to know his truth. God wants us to have the knowledge of the fullness of who he is and what he has for us. It's written in the Bible, and your pastors have refused to teach it because they don't believe. That's the only reason. They don't believe it. Now, don't just go off what I have said. Please check these scriptures for yourself. And there's many more. God bless you. I'm not surprised.
Oh, okay. So, once again, the churches sign a pact with the Abraham, the architects of Abrahamic religions, that, in order for them to get financing to build a church, they can only teach limited books and only teach certain principles and stay away from principles, because if you understood the concept of reincarnation, it holds you accountable of what you do to others will be done unto you in the next life. And so it also creates a situation, well, I only have one life. And that's a conflict, because, even in the Bible, it say you live forever. So, which is true, the soul lives forever, but the bodies are temporary vehicles. But the soul keeps going through experiences over and over again. And so, I have people in my family, that'll say, you can tell how they operate. I'm gonna do dirt. I'm not gonna be a part of raising children up out of this ignorance, or because I only got to live one life. I'm living good right now, so I don't have to worry about the next life. Hey, Chairman, you've experienced that with any family members?
Well, I've got atheists, I've got religious people, and living in an infinite universe with thoughts, you could go from one extreme to another. So, I could elaborate on the atheists that don't believe in nothing but themselves, and the religious who believes in that there is a God that has power over everything, and in some senses manipulating society, because and I say manipulating because if you don't do what God says do, then you're punished in some sense. I don't believe that, but there are some family members that do. God is going to do this, God is going to do that. My concept of God is a little different from the average person. I believe in God, but I don't believe God is manipulating and making all these decisions, because I believe that when God created humanity, that was it was perfect in a sense. It give us so much time to be here, experience life, and then we move on to another dimension. That's my belief. But like I say, I got family members that go from one extreme to another.
I understand. Hey, Andre, how do your generation see reincarnation?
Most of us believe in it naturally. So it's not because well, no, I take that back. Before I even say it, so a number of reasons why we do. I think most of it is coming as an innate download from the true Most High, as what Mr. Chairman is talking about. So it's just a raising of the frequency on the planet overall, and with that comes, information that's already encoded within us. It just comes to the surface. It comes to the consciousness, after it's been repressed by these Abrahamic type religions that we're about to talk about.
Yeah. So we got one other clip. Go ahead and set that one up, man. Caucasian people in general, when you think about that, their phenotype was only created 6,600 years ago.
So you believe in reincarnation? You gotta be a moron not to. Here's the thing. I believe.
My bad, go ahead.
So I'm really, I'm constantly hammering this particular thought for Caucasian people. First of all, Caucasian people, I believe that a majority of you were melanated people in a previous life, and in your ability of choice, you went for the okie doke and got hoodwinked into serving this Luciferian low frequency entity energy, and you lost your privilege to these melanated bodies. And I don't think you hate us. I think you're jealous of humans that still have their melanated body. And you're asking the question, why do you have the melanated body and I got this Caucasian phenocode that is not up to the same level? So therefore, I got to do hideous and crazy things to level the playing field. And so we're getting to the root of the problem here on planet Earth. The experiment is such where we got to fix this. And, a lot of you Caucasians and Black people that's involved in white supremacy. It ain't just Caucasian people that's involved in white supremacy. We got Black folks, that supports it and love it because, if you're a woman, it protects you, it gives you power over your men that you may cherish or thrive on, and if you're Caucasian, it gives you access to the banks and the political systems to continue this madness that we have that's precipitated what we have now with Agent Orange in the White House. So go ahead and play that clip, man.
So you believe in reincarnation? You gotta be a moron not to. Here's the thing. I believe there's old souls and there's young souls. And people don't have the same mission. Based off numerology, there's people who are 1s, 3s, people who are 4s, and all those people have to have different challenges in life. I believe that every life path basically offers a clue into what our soul's basic destiny needs to be in this lifetime, because it makes more sense to me that as a soul evolves, it has to go through different missions. So you believe in reincarnation? You gotta be a moron not to. Here's the
So when I see Caucasian men like this that are expressing that frequency, I get excited because I say, well, if a lot more Caucasian people realize this, that'll get to the root of the problem of what we have here on planet Earth. Because this whole economic system is based on manipulation and domination and contamination. This economic system is destroying our planet because it's designed for repeat customers, and these products and things are contaminate the product, the country. So we can redesign our whole economic system with a different narrative or a different platform to where it's not contaminate the planet. But then you can't become millionaires and billionaires, with the illusion of that you are controlling products and services that can be shared on the planet in a way it doesn't have to destroy our planet, Mother Nature concept. So, so I get excited when I see Caucasian men, elevating to that frequency. And a lot of them are, like we say on the shows now, are working on that melanated body in the next lifetime. Because the men, especially, when they see a melanated woman, they be like, "Damn, I'd like to have that melanated woman." But when she look at me in this body and look at another melanated man, she had a choice. If there was a level playing field, she's gonna pick that melanated man every time. So that's why we have this problem. And this is where the experiment on planet Earth is why we have going on wars, murdering of babies, and all of this sort of thing. I really get a puff under my shirt, under my collar, when I think about how these sick dogs are murdering children just for a real estate deal, and they have no idea what's waiting for them in the next life. And they have this mindset, I don't have to worry about the next life. I'm living only, this is my only life. And this is the point why we're bringing this out. This is not your only life. You will come back, and what you've done to others, whether it's gentrification, ethnic purity, purifying, all you participate in any of these actions as if you are God. Boy, you got some. If you ever wonder why people come back so jacked up, and it is just not in Caucasian, in their black bodies too, they come back really jacked up. You mean why did God let that happen to them? No, they don't blame that on God. You did that. You precipitated that in the previous life. And so if you go and murder, listen, if you go and murder 10,000 babies because you want a real estate deal, what do you think karma is going to do for you in the next life? Hey, man, So, Chairman, any more comments before we go into the Abrahamic religions?
Well, nobody's going to get out of this alive. Everybody's got dues to pay, and your reward depends upon your deeds, what you do. And I'll leave it like that.
All right, so I have to give credit to my son. He's starting to elevate past me. Me and the chairman in our 70s, and we can't halfway remember what we did yesterday. So my son is going to bring up the topic, of who came up with this system to have us so screwed up, and instead of just blaming it on the Catholic Church all the time like I do, my son said, well, it's the Abrahamic religions. Hey man, go ahead and enlighten us.
All right. So that's what we're gonna talk about for a little minute, family. My daddy did come to me, kind of pondering on whether he should call it the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church is one of, let's say, 4 limbs on an Abrahamic conglomerate body. And I would say it's probably the right arm, meaning the arm used to punch people. Y'all feel what I'm saying? Is most people's right arm is the one they use the most. That's what the Catholic Church is. That's where the Pope and the Vatican operate within. But I'm gonna explain to you how that came to be, and how they also work in conjunction with the Khazarian conglomerate, which are essentially the Jews. Probably, I'm probably gonna get flagged for that. All right, I don't care. I'm just saying, just mentioning it out loud, they start to mess with your broadcast. But
like the Jamaicans say,
suck
your teeth on that.
Also, another arm is the Islamic arm, right? And of course, the fourth, or the one we're talking about the most, is the Christian arm. So let me go back and cover those. But before I start, let me just say this to all y'all out there, family. Everything I'm about to say is objective knowledge and truth. I understand where y'all at on your spiritual journey and why you are subscribing to whatever religious practice that you're subscribing to. And by the end of this, by the time I get done with this, hopefully you understand as well, right? But again, I say this all the time on the show. I ain't bashing you. I understand what's going on with you. But what I am about to give y'all is the facts on the matter. Okay? So while we saying Abrahamic religion, and like the topic say, what is it and where did it come from? So we know the 4 arms again. We got Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and Catholicism. Technically, Christianity and Catholicism are kind of one and the same, right? At least they acknowledge and reverence the same fictional family, which is the character Jesus Christ and his mother and father and so forth and so on. And the reason why I say the character is because I'm telling you how they came up with those people. Okay, I'm going to tell you how they came up with those people. But before we talk about them, we got to talk about their predecessors, who also, I believe, possibly made up characters. Either way, but it's still very intriguing as to how they wrote the narrative on all of these people. So Abraham is important because, again, Abraham's descendants, based on his story, are the nations that create Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, in Catholicism. Without Abraham, you have none of those. And all of my Bible thumpers, all of my, astute Bible readers, y'all know this. Y'all read this Bible all the time. Y'all know exactly what's going on, right? Y'all know how Abraham's lineage populated the land of Canaan and Israel, right? So, but the big question is, who is Abraham and where is he from? Most times when I ask anybody who's astute in reading the Bible, I ask them, where is Abraham from? Where is Abraham from? Very strong question to ask. Where is Abraham from? And most of them, they either act like they don't know, or they just simply say, I don't know. Well, I'll tell them, I know where he's from. I was asking you a redundant question. I know exactly where he's from, based on the scripture in the Bible. Let's pull it up, because I don't want y'all to just take my word for it. Let's actually look it up. So just, if you were just to Google it, where was Abraham from? Simply like that, right? It's going to say he's from the city of Ur of the Chaldees. It's the city of Ur of the Chaldees. In the Bible, in the actual scripture, lays it out pretty plainly. All right. So in Genesis 11, book 31, Terah, Abraham's father, took his son Abraham and his grandson Lot and his daughter-in-law and departed from Ur of the Chaldees. Right? That's where they pretty much grew up. His father Terah grew up in Ur, and all of his predecessing forefathers, all from that area of Ur, all the way up to Noah. All the way up to Noah, right? So they grew up in this place. They grew up in this place called Ur. Now, next question should be, where or what is Ur? What is the city of Ur? I'm showing you. All right. Y'all see this little spot right here? This is Ur. This is modern day Iraq, which was formerly Persia. And before it was Persia, it was Babylon. And before it was Babylon, it was Sumer, the nation of Sumer. It goes back about 4,000 years, about 4,000 years ago. So I need to show you this just so you ain't got no confusion on where the city is. Because a lot of times people want to say, well, the city of Ur could have been somewhere up here. Like, no, it wasn't. It was only one city of Ur, and it was down here by the Persian Gulf. Or where they say the Garden of Eden was, which is about right here. This is where they claim the Garden of Eden was. They said it was between the Tigris and Euphrates River. This is the Tigris, this is Euphrates, and all of this up in here would be this Garden of Eden. All of this, right? So when you start to look further on, you start to look further into Abraham, you say, okay, so Abraham grew up in this place and he was about 70 years old before he left. He was there for a long time. That means he was heavily entrenched in the culture of the city and his nation, right? So he was from here. That's who he is. And the Bible also says he's from the city of Ur, and in the place where he's from, they worship different gods. They worshiped different gods. And who are these gods are we talking about? Who were the gods of Babylon and Sumer? The Anunnaki. That's who they were. That's where this whole area, that's what they worship. As a matter of fact, they had a different Anunnaki god for every city that was over here. All right. Polytheism at the time. All right. So now, particularly the city that Abraham was from, he worshiped all of his life, and his fathers, all of their life, worshiped a very particular god, and the god's name was Sin. Interestingly enough. But either way, let me sidestep for a second. I'm giving y'all a very brief overview of this in the book that me and my father wrote, Lucifer's Revenge. I'll break all of this down into very, very great detail, right? Because I'm gonna give y'all about 15, 20 minutes max. But in the book, you know, it may take you a minute to read and cross-reference and study and check sources of everything that's in there. But I did it for you. but it's in there and it's accurate. So then what happens? What happens to Abraham? He leaves. He leaves the city of Ur. Just I just showed y'all that. Left the city of Ur. And where did he go? Where did he go and why did he leave? The Bible says God reached out to him and said, I want you to leave the city of Ur, pack up your family and go across this desert and go over here into the land of Canaan. That's what this is. This was formerly called the land of Canaan. Before it was Palestine, Jerusalem, Israel, all of that. It was the land of Canaan. That's what it was. Your Bible says so as well. Your Bible says that, right? So you got a question. You got a question, okay? And the Bible just says God reached out to him. Okay, but let's stop there for a second. All right. When we're looking at a Christian Bible, you know, we're getting a particular narrative. As a matter of fact, when we're looking at the Christian Bible and we're looking at this particular story about Abraham leaving Ur, it's in a particular book of Genesis. It's in the book of Genesis, right? And this is the side stuff I got to make for just a moment. So the book of Genesis is a Hebrew book. That's a Judaic book. It's a part of the Torah, meaning the first 5 books of the Bible are the Torah. The first 5 books of the Christian Bible are Jewish books. So in other words, if you don't have these first 5 books of the Bible, you don't have Christianity at all.
Are these the same Jews that's murdering these people over in Gaza?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, I just want to get clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So these are if you don't have the first 5 books of the Torah, you don't have the rest of the Bible, because pretty much the rest of the Bible is predicated on the first 5 books, right? So, so in this book of Genesis, it's saying that, you know, God, mind you, God at this time has a name. Jews had a name for God. It wasn't God. They had a different name for him, right? Name was Yahweh. Yahweh was his name, all right? Now, Yahweh wasn't a mysterious God. He wasn't some unknown deity. He was very well known, in comparison, and I'll get to that. In comparison, he was well known, but he also had a family. He wasn't even just one singular God. He had a family. He had brothers. He had a mother and a father who also had names, and everybody was well aware of who his mother, father, and brothers were. Now, interesting that you used to mention when we were first writing Lucifer's Revenge, you used to mention, you know, Beelzebub and all of them, and you mentioned, remember Baal?
Yes.
Baal was Yahweh's brother. Baal is Yahweh's brother.
One of the so-called fallen angels.
Well, we call them what they want to, right? But you know, a simple Google search, yeah, in the ancient Canaanite pantheon, Yahweh, God of Israel, was initially seen as a lesser deity among a larger group of gods and goddesses. This included gods like Baal, Asherah, and El. Now, I know this, but El and Asherah were the mother and father god of all of Canaan. In other words, all of Israel, all of Jerusalem. So before they were worshiping Yahweh as the one singular person, they were worshiping this whole family that Yahweh was from. First, that's who they was worshiping. Now, you know, long story short, I ain't gonna get into the deep history on how Yahweh became the only one, but eventually he became the only one. All right. So there's no mystery on who reached out to Abraham and told him to come to Israel. It was Yahweh. It was Yahweh, right? It was Yahweh. So just given that brief opening or view into how Abrahamic religions came about. Once the narrative states that Abraham comes into Israel, his descendants populate the area, and essentially what ends up happening is you've got Canaanite families that were essentially what we call Arab today. What you call Arab today. So in other words, Jewish families, a form of Arab. Islamic royal families, a form of Arab. These same Arabs from this whole Mesopotamian area also went up into Europe and took over them several times. There's a reason they made that movie 300. Remember what Xerxes? What do you think? He was Persian. Where was he from? Persia is in Mesopotamia. And what was Persia? Persia was the same people that was worshiping the Anunnaki. They took that whole concept up into Europe. And you know what they also came up with? The Roman Catholic Church. Persia influenced the creation of the Roman Catholic Church. In other words, they took so much military conquest up into Europe that Europe became good at fighting because they had to. it was always getting invaded by quote unquote Arabs who had a totally different religion, who had that religion from Sumer, which Abraham was from. All right. So they bring this an Anunnaki ideology into the land of Canaan. They bring this Anunnaki ideology into Europe, and they start these psyops they spread their psyops agenda all over these whole areas. And what ends up happening is, in Rome, they intertwine with them so much that Rome was almost like a military religious civilization, right? Military religious civilization. So they became the strong armors, right? They became the strong armors of the whole Abrahamic conglomerate.
Like the U.S. Army is today.
Like they are today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna need y'all to go get the book. This is the last point I'm gonna make here. Going back to the city of Ur and Anunnaki and such. So one thing I realized when I was writing the book Lucifer's Revenge along with Pop was, when you take a look at all of the Abrahamic religious books, whether it be the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, all of them, they all have the narratives, or they all have stories primarily about the happenings from the human's perspective on Earth. And they're written in such a way where all of the actions of the quote unquote gods and such are mysterious. All of their actions are hidden or not understandable because that's allegedly beyond a human's comprehension and understanding. But the truth of the matter is, when they were in the source of where these ideologies were coming from, again, which was Sumer, which had a city of Ur within it. Prior to all of the gods being mysterious, when Sumerians were writing about their religion, all they talked about was the action of the gods. They talked about them all the time. They talked about everything they was doing. They talked about all of their interactions all the time. And if you go back and you read what they call Sumerian text, you'll get all of the original stories of some of the most notable characters and Abrahamic religion. You're going to get the real story on Noah. You're going to get the real story on Yahweh. You're going to get the real story on, you're going to even get the real story on Jesus. Right. But you have to let go of the fear of gaining information first.
Oh yeah. Wow.
First, you don't want to sit back and say, I don't want to know that information because my God said that I shouldn't know it. I'm telling you right now, I just showed you exactly who the God that you're praying to. Again, I'm saying this objectively. I'm not saying this with, in any kind of shaming matter, but the God that you're praying to in any Abrahamic religion is essentially Sumerian and Anunnaki. That's where they all came from. That's where they all came from, including Yahweh. But you're going to have to get the book Lucifer's Revenge to see how Yahweh was also or became an Anunnaki God. All right. Now, and here's the last point, because I'm going to land this plane, because I know we only got about 10 minutes left. When you look at the origins, the Sumerian origins of all of Abrahamic angels, gods, or whatever, you trace the origins to the top of their family tree, and you've got some very intriguing people up there. And I'm going to say it straight like this. You've got you a black man, and then you've got you a reptilian woman who sit at the top of the Anunnaki pantheon. In other words, the Anunnaki family tree. In other words, the very first two Anunnaki, stated by them themselves. I didn't make it up. You can go look it up. All right? You can go look up, if you want to, just go search the first two Anunnaki and then trace everything down from there. And it's going to bring you to the point of the Garden of Eden, the Genesis project. That's where it's going to bring you. And then you'll move forward from there as far as Abraham going into Israel, and then how all the Abrahamic religions come about. And then furthermore, how we are today with subscribing to all of these Abrahamic religions. All right, I'll land that right there.
So interesting, very good, very informative. So I got a question though. How did let's look at the time frame of 6,600 years ago when the Caucasians phenocode was developed using a reptilian subterranean sperm and injected it into a melanated female mitochondrial DNA to create pale-skinned people. How does that line up with the development of these religions and understanding religions are man-made constructs to use, as my son said, psyops to control and enslave populations? When did the, I'm gonna call it the Lucifer agenda, take that cross sperm and inject it into the mitochondrial DNA of a heavily melanated woman to create Caucasian people?
Well, all right, so I'll answer your first question, the timeline. So when we say the word Caucasian, we tend to think European white, but Arabs are Caucasian too. In other words, Mesopotamians are Caucasian. You take a look at where the Caucasus Mountains are. They ain't in Europe, like not too deep into Europe. They far in Western Europe and North Mesopotamia. They're kind of like the midway mark between Mesopotamia and Europe. So when we say Caucasian, by ethnic identity and even, let's say, for lack of a better word, political status, then we're talking about Arabs. If we got Arabs in the United States today who identify as white on paper, you feel me? That's what they identify as. We got several groups of for lack of a better word, foreigners, political foreigners, who identify as white on paper. They identify as white now. But anyway, getting back to the ethnicity of them. Again, Caucasians ain't just what we think of as white Europeans. In other words, pale Europeans. You've got dark-skinned Arabs who are Caucasians. Right? We got to open this up. Just take your feelings off of it. We've got dark-skinned Arabs who are Caucasians, technically by genetic lineage. That's what they are. So now your other question, the timeline on whether what you consider the Luciferian agenda. Well, I look at it like this. Based on what we just talked about, if you've got a black man and you've got a reptilian queen sitting at the top of the Anunnaki pantheon, are you sure it was a black woman that they injected, or was it a black man having sex with something other than a black woman?
So
that created these beings.
What? No, okay, let's deal with that. So my theory is when a black man injects his sperm into a Caucasian female, you're not getting the original mitochondrial DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you got these fair-skinned humans, because you still got to take a look at that female, that Caucasian, that light-skinned female, descended from a subterranean reptilian humanoid form. And the science is this: if you live beneath the surface for thousands of years, your pineal gland is like a little computer chip. I don't need to create melanin to protect me from the sunlight. So they mutated and became pale over thousands of years. So that phenocode changed to its environment. So if you take a black male sperm and inject it into a Caucasian female, all you got is a light-skinned black person. But if you take a Caucasian or a reptilian hybrid that's been beneath the surface, and this pineal gland then calcified because it's telling your computer, I don't need to produce melanin, so therefore I'm going to change my pineal gland, which is a receptor of the Most High, of the sun, of pure energy of nature. It mutates, so it has reprogrammed itself to live beneath the surface in hostile.
Wait. Man, I'm following you, but I'm trying to follow you. So what you're saying is, if you get a black man and a non-black woman,
yes,
you're gonna get some light-skinned people.
Yeah.
All right. So if you get a black woman and then what?
So and you insert a reptilian sperm that has mutated for thousands of years beneath the surface
into her, you're gonna get what?
You get a what you call a straight Caucasian, and depending on the various degrees.
Me and Chairman both looking at you like, huh?
Yeah. Now, Chairman, I know you want to come in with the Phoenicians and those other groups. They got involved too. Now
well, here's the thing. Now, we can see this today, and the power of women, the power of femininity. They don't, like you said, they're the ones that carry the mitochondria of DNA. So in other words, they're going to pass down the women hold the like, let's say the manufacturer exactly of the genes. Yeah. So if a black woman's going to make anything, she's going to make something black.
She can make anything she wants to make.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, she can make anything, but the anomaly occurs with that male sperm, Caucasian or reptilian sperm. It's a defect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a defect, and let's say from a natural balance perspective. But the black male does not carry the full armament of the mitochondrial DNA like the black woman does. So all he's going to produce is a light-skinned human.
Well, that's what you got. That's what Caucasians are.
Well, you got some Caucasians that now, Chairman, we got to talk about that alien race of what do they call the Phoenicians, or what do they call?
Oh boy.
They're Aryan. And they got in the game, but they had to get permission to get in the game. So they took the mitochondrial DNA. So they were smart. The mitochondrial DNA of a Black woman took millions of years to develop. The mitochondrial DNA of a Caucasian woman is only 6,000 or 7,000 years old. There's a difference, you know. So with those alien races from other solar systems that came here, pale, you know. So after that mitochondrial Black woman gave permission for that type of human to walk on the planet, because that million years it took to build up resistance to bacteria, diseases, and all of that, they had to tie into that. But when they injected that reptilian sperm, it didn't have the full armament to live on the surface, you know, and definitely it couldn't stay in the sun. But the Phoenicians got involved in the game. They got access to the game, and they did what you call a more, in their minds, a purified concept of pale Caucasians. So that's why in Norway and Sweden and all that, you got a different type of Caucasian. And they think that they're more pure.
Palladians.
Palladians, yeah. But they still, Chairman, in order to live on this surface, on this planet, you had to get the mitochondrial DNA. It took 1 million years of resistance against all of the bacteria, diseases, viruses. It took 1 million years to build up a resistance, to build up the little computer genes that will fight against all of that in order for you to exist on this planet. All the planets in the universe got different systems, you know. So I believe the Aryan races, after you got the cave people that created the human form, they got involved, and so they took their little group and went somewhere up north with it into the
Neanderthal.
Yeah, they took that after that Neanderthal was created first from the mitochondrial DNA of a Black woman. They took it and went north and experimented some more with it, and that's where you get these blonde hair. But you know, so I knew this was going to be a hot topic. We're right at the we're right at 3 minutes after, and I haven't even talked about Tampa. We may have to carry this conversation on, you know, and bring in some other people with scientific inclinations or whatever you want to call it. But the point we're getting at in this human experiment, this mix-up occurred because the original melanated people, the original melanated humans on this planet, start getting ridiculous with each other, with their own brothers and sisters and cousins, and the powers of the Most High had to intervene and whoop that ass. And, you know, it's called "Don't Spare the Rod," and so the impurities of this planet, just like if you got impurities in your planet, it comes to the surface. And what color is it? It's pale. And so what do? You got to pop that pimple to get that impurity out of your system. And so what this show is working on is to bring balance back to this planet. We're not discriminating. We're not talking down or trying to dog out one culture over another. We just get into the root of the problem to make you think, how did we get here? That's all we're doing. We you know, and so still, I look at this skin, you know, this complexion, and I'm saying I want to live on. If I had to live on this planet again, I want my supernatural melanated Mendigo body with dark skin, you know, and that's, you know, so I've reflected on why I had to have this mixture, in order for me to talk. It gives me the authority to talk about both sides, because I don't know whether one of my great grandmothers got raped by a Caucasian or not. But either way, we're getting to the root of this problem, and why do Caucasian people have to continue to scheme and finagle and lie and cheat and steal to conquer land, and continue to spiral this planet into a destiny of death and destruction. That's our problem on this planet, and that's what we got to fix. So real quick, before I close this thing out, I also say that and why the city of Tampa is starting to experience direct hit hurricanes after 100 years. 1921 was the last time they got a direct hit. So this is my theory. Black people in Tampa has been supporting white supremacy without knowing it, by proxy. And they have been praying to the wrong frequency. And I'm not going to say since my arrival, but I'm part of it. But since this frequency is broadcasting to these new generations and these new star seeds are being born, we're no longer praying to the frequency of white supremacy, which was created in these church systems. And it started out with a white Jesus. So as we move from praying from that frequency, we're no longer protecting or giving energy to this evil white supremacy of gender, of gentrification, racism, discrimination, manipulation. And that's going on in my hometown city of Tampa right now. The political structure is corrupted, and it has moved a majority of Black folks out of the city and destroyed their culture, and then move them out where they're totally disconnected. They have no control of the land. They don't control the commercial businesses. And anytime these white supremacy groups want to, they can start shutting down that economy, even after they have shifted them out to the suburbs. And what they've done is they get the permission from certain melanated people to transfer our land, our power, and our culture and decimate it. And so what is happening through the awakening process, we're no longer supporting. So that protection that Tampa used to have is dissipating because melanated people are waking up. Not all of them, but enough of them. And if enough of melanated people start waking up to the injustices that are going on in the city, like right now, and I keep saying this over and over again, right here, about 500 yards from where we live, the whole town is being taken over by a South African descendant. So where do you think them South African people that Trump is allowing to come in is coming to? Where do you think they're going to move? And what are they going to be? They're going to have an allegiance to white supremacy. Why? Because they got kicked out of Africa, a country that they invaded. How long ago did the Caucasians invade South Africa? 500 years, same as here?
Yeah, probably not that long, probably about 3.
Okay, so you keep using that negative energy, your shield of protection will dissipate and you will get hit by storms. Now, some other advanced scientists say, well, we got a heart device. We can destroy any city we want. We can manipulate the weather. Yeah, but there's still, you may have some hand-me-down technology when you're doing evil, but there's still a technology more advanced than yours that can override your lowly hand-me-down technology and wipe you off this planet if you continue with manipulating racism, discrimination, moving people, taking over their land, ethnic purification. You keep it up, you will get wiped out. And that's what's going on with Tampa. So if they keep this racism up, and I had a situation where I was trying to build, we were trying to build a community garden. The woman next door is a racist. So she wanted to take this black woman's land, just like in Gaza. Same scenario. We'll go over there, they will have some people over there sabotage the funds for the agency. You have to go out and do the work before you can get reimbursed for it, and none of the banks will finance you. Even with good credit, they won't finance because they know you're getting ready to grow a food source that's healthy. So they don't want black folks growing healthy food. That's why you get the direct hurricane, and you're gonna get more. Keep it up. Keep this ignorance up of white supremacy. So I'm gonna land that plane. Chairman, what you got to say about all this before we close out?
Well, the Akashic records hold the key to the mystery, and it's going to be revealed. And some people say in the next couple years, but I've got a strange feeling it's going to be before then. And
Right
we
now.
got here somehow. Extraterrestrials have the keys to those Akashic records, and it will be revealed. Just hang in there.
Hey, Chairman, how can they find your book?
You can find my book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, on my website, which is www.godschildren.biz. You know, and it's a good read. It's definitely will make you think, and you read about my trials and tribulations, it'll make you think about your trials and tribulations. So if you want something interesting and informative, get that book. It's an easy read. Thank you.
All right, Chairman. So the same thing, we have two books that we're promoting on this show, and we're going to take that energy when you purchase one of our books, and we're going to convert it into positive energy. We're going to create new educational systems to tell the truth. We're going to give all humans an equal and equitable opportunity and a fair and beautiful life. This is what we're investing in. You know, you spent money in all of this madness, Gucci bags, all of that stuff. And Chairman, what's your book cost?
My book, you can get it for $10.
Okay.
The title for the newbies is called God's Child. That's everybody's title in the universe.
Hey, our book is $19 on Amazon, you know, and so you would rather continue to go to these churches where these preachers will not teach you the whole truth. You get it from us, than to get two books that, you know, 1 million of you ought to have that book in your hand right now. Just to send a different frequency out into the atmosphere, because you can change things when you all on one accord. And that one accord should be unconditional love for your fellow humans, treat people the way you want to be treated, and respect each other, no matter whether you're short, tall, fat, skinny, light skin or dark skin. We're all created equal because we have a particular purpose that the universe gave you to offer to this formulas of balance. That's what this show is all about. And so why are you, my son said it earlier, some of you just afraid to get additional knowledge because it might be too scary for you. I promise you, it's a beautiful transition to awakening. We've gone, what, 13 minutes over. Chairman, son, engineer, what's your closing thoughts? You did a great job with the Abrahamic religion. It should for everybody to understand how this madness and ignorance was created.
All I got to say is this, go get Chairman's book, God's Child. Also, too, you know, everything I was talking about. Again, I gave you the brief on it today, but we got it broken down in very great detail in our book, Lucifer's Revenge. So go to lucifersrevenge.net, order your a copy, either ebook or paper, and you just need this book to put on your shelf at minimum. So even if you don't want to read it, you know, some of your family members that come by, the black sheep family members that come by, they gonna read it. They gonna see it. They gonna pick it right up off, and y'all should have a conversation about it. All right, but I'll land it right there. If y'all ain't got nothing else, I'm gonna close it on out. This has been the Straight Talk Network show. We love y'all as always. Peace out. We